HOA Karen destroyed park stone bench, fined $130 and replaced it. The park was our sanctuary, a green haven where kids chased fireflies and old folks swapped stories under the oaks. But last summer, Karen McAllister, the HOA's self-appointed queen, decided it was her personal kingdom to rule. Her smug grin as she barked orders at picnickers was the first sign of trouble. I'm Javier, a single dad who moved to Willow Creek for a fresh start with my daughter. Sophia, the park was our escape, where she'd sketch wildflowers while I sipped coffee on the stone bench by the pond. That bench, carved with decades of initials from lovers and dreamers, was the heart of the park. It wasn't just stone, it was history. Every neighbor had a story tied to it: proposals, first kisses, or quiet moments of grief. So when Karen decided it clashed with her vision for a modernized park, my stomach churned. Karen, with her pristine white blazer and clipboard, had been terrorizing Willow Creek for months. She'd fine people for untrimmed hedges, lecture kids for skateboarding, and once tried to ban dogs because they lowered property values. But the bench that was her obsession, she called it an eyesore, too rustic for her sterile aesthetic. She wanted sleek metal benches, the kind you'd see in a corporate plaza, not a community park. We begged her to reconsider petitions, town halls, even Sophia's crayon-drawn plea. Karen just smirked, saying, progress requires sacrifice. The tension simmered as spring turned to summer. Karen's HOA allies pushed her agenda, but the bench became a symbol of resistance. Neighbors rallied, chaining themselves to it during protests. I wasn't much for confrontation, but Sophia's love for that bench pulled me in. I spoke at meetings, my voice shaky but firm, arguing it wasn't just about a bench. It was about who got to decide what our community valued. Karen dismissed us as sentimental fools, her eyes glinting with disdain. Then came the twist none of us saw coming. At a heated HOA meeting, a soft-spoken retiree named Mrs. Delgado stood up. She was a widow, barely 5 feet tall, always tending her roses. Nobody expected her to drop a bombshell. I checked the HOA records, she said, clutching a folder. That bench was donated in 1965 by the town's founder, with a covenant protecting it as a historic landmark. Gasps rippled through the room. Karen's face froze, her usual smugness replaced by a flicker of panic. Mrs. Delgado had uncovered what Karen's modernization conveniently ignored. Destroying the bench wasn't just vandalism, it was illegal. But Karen didn't back down. If anything, the revelation made her double down. She started spreading lies, claiming the covenant was outdated, that the bench was a safety hazard. She even hired a shady contractor, some guy named Vince who looked like he'd sell his own kids for a paycheck. Whispers spread that Karen was planning something drastic. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was about to cross a line nobody could undo. One humid July evening, Sophia and I were at the park when we heard a sickening crack, like a bone snapping. We ran toward the sound, joining a growing crowd. There, under the glow of a street lamp, was the stone bench, reduced to rubble. Karen stood beside it, arms crossed, while Vince wielded a sledgehammer, grinning like he'd just won a prize. The crowd erupted shouts, curses, even tears. Sophia clutched my hand, her sketchbook forgotten on the grass. Why would she do this? Dad, she whispered. I had no answer. The destruction wasn't just physical, it was a gut punch to the community. The bench's ruins lay scattered like a broken promise, initials of past loves buried in the dirt. Karen's smug voice cut through the chaos. It's done. Move on. But we couldn't. The crowd surged forward, demanding answers. Karen didn't flinch, yelling back that we were overreacting and that her new benches would arrive next week. I saw red. This wasn't just about a bench anymore. It was about her trampling everything we held dear. The next morning, the park was a crime scene. Police taped off the area, and Mrs. Delgado was there, handing over her folder to an officer. Turns out, she'd been busy. Not only was the bench protected, but its destruction violated state preservation laws. Karen's contractor, Vince, wasn't even licensed another strike. The community's outrage grew louder, fueled by social media posts showing the bench's wreckage. Hashtags like Chumari Save Willow Bench trended locally, and news crews showed up, cameras rolling as neighbors shared their stories. Karen tried to spin it, posting on the HOA's Facebook page that the bench was unsafe and she'd saved the park, but the evidence was undeniable. Photos of her standing by the wreckage, Vince's sledgehammer in hand, went viral. Then came another twist. Vince, under pressure, turned on Karen. He leaked texts showing she'd paid him extra to get it done fast and ignore the complaints. The community's fury reached a boiling point. We weren't just angry, we were out for justice. The confrontation came at the next town hall, packed to the brim with furious residents. Karen walked in, chin high, but the room's energy was electric with rage. Mrs. Delgado took the mic first, laying out the legal violations with the precision of a prosecutor. Then I spoke, my voice steadier this time, telling the crowd how Sophia cried herself to sleep over the bench she loved. Others followed, teens who'd carved their names on it, grandparents who'd proposed there. Each story was a dagger, and Karen's confidence crumbled. By the end, she was shouting, "You're all ungrateful," but her voice was drowned out by boos. The legal hammer dropped fast. The town sued Karen for violating the historic covenant, and the state piled on with charges for unauthorized destruction of a protected landmark. Her contractor, Vince, cut a deal to avoid jail, leaving Karen to face the music alone. The court didn't hold back a $130,000 fine for damages, legal fees, and a mandatory order to replace the bench with an exact replica. Karen's face during the verdict was a mix of shock and defiance, but she had no allies left. Even her HOA cronies distanced themselves, claiming they'd never approved her plan. Replacing the bench wasn't cheap or easy. The original stone was quarried locally, a type no longer available. So Karen had to pay artisans to recreate it, down to the weathered texture and carved initials. Every dollar stung, and the neighborhood watched her squirm. She tried to sell her house to cover the costs, but nobody would buy from Benchbreaker Karen, as the local paper dubbed her. Her reputation was in tatters, her social media silent, her reign over Willow Creek over. The new bench was unveiled in autumn, under the same oaks where the old one stood. Sophia ran her fingers over the recreated initials, smiling for the first time in months. The park felt whole again, but the scars lingered. Karen moved away, her house foreclosed, her name a cautionary tale. At the unveiling, Mrs. Delgado gave a quiet speech about community and standing up to bullies. "This bench," she said, "is proof we're stronger than one person's ego." The victory wasn't just the bench or the fine, it was the community reclaiming its voice. We'd fought for something bigger than stone, a sense of belonging, of history, of home. Karen's downfall was a bitter but satisfying lesson. Actions have consequences, and no one's above accountability. What do you think? Was the $130,000 fine and replacement enough? Or should Karen have faced harsher consequences for destroying a piece of our community's heart? Share your thoughts below.